Good morning, my friends. It's Miss Schultzen, Tadpole here. He's hanging out, doing a good job of being the neighborhood watch today. He was barking up a storm at the people walking by, so hopefully nobody walks by while we're recording our video so that you don't have to listen to him bark in the window. He's taken his little friend Shelly the sheep, and he is up there watching out the window too. So Shelly the sheep and Tadpole are my new neighborhood watch friends. All right, so today's word of the day is skill. And a skill is something that you have the ability to do well. So I don't know if you can see over here behind my shoulder in the background, on the wall there, I have a wall hanging, and that is one of my skills. I sewed that together, something that I have the ability to do really well. I cut all the little pieces out and put it together and put it up there on the wall. So today I promised you that we would finish our book, Zoe and Sassafras, Monsters and Mold. Temple decided he does not want to snuggle in my lap today to hear this, so I will read the rest of this to you. Chapter 9. I'm going to turn my computer just a little bit so you can see the books a little bit better. The Moldy Fur Experiment. I grabbed my bags of monster fur and my science notebook and went into the kitchen. I started writing down all the bits of my experiment so I wouldn't forget what I'd done. It would probably take a day or two before I could even tell if the mold wasn't growing on some of my test fur. I could definitely forget a lot in 2 days. Question: what will stop the mold from growing on Gorp's fur? Now I needed to make my guess. Which preservative did I think would work best? Most of the stuff in the kitchen used salt. It seemed to work for an awfully lot of things. So it probably would work on monster fur too. Hypothesis. Remember, a hypothesis is the educated guess based on the facts. I think salt will stop the mold from growing on Gorp's fur. All right, now I need to decide how much of each preservative to add. I needed to add the same amount each time. Let's see, maybe 2 teaspoons would be enough. That seemed good to me. Procedure. Remember, the procedure is what we do and the steps we do it. 1. Put the same amount of Gorp's fur in each Ziploc bag. 2. Don't add anything to one bag. Add 2 teaspoons of oil to another, 2 teaspoons of vinegar to another, and 2 teaspoons of salt to another. Add 2 teaspoons of salt to 2 teaspoons of sugar to another. 3. Seal the bags. 4. Put the bags in the same place in the barn and check every day to see if mold grows. Phew, that was a lot of writing. I shook out my hand. First, I sealed the bag with nothing but fur in it. I labeled it so I could remember that it was the one that didn't add anything. The nothing bag should grow mold like normal. In a few days, I could hold it next to the other bags to see if they were doing a better job of stopping the mold. I got a new bag and added 2 teaspoons of vinegar and swished it around until all of the monster fur in the bag was wet. I crinkled up my nose. Ugh. I quickly sealed the bag so I wouldn't have to smell it anymore. I labeled it vinegar. I did the same thing for the oil bag. Things were going just fine until I added the sugar to the 4th bag. Ugh, this isn't working, Sassafras. The sugar keeps falling to the bottom of the bag. Most of it isn't even touching the fur. Maybe it would be fine. No, it was definitely bugging me that it wasn't coating the fur like the vinegar and oil had. Whump! Suddenly, a big ball of fur, fluffy fur, was next to me on the kitchen counter. I was about to yell, "Sassafras, off the counter!" when I realized that he was bumping his head against the jelly jar. That was weird. Sassafras liked to eat bugs, not jelly. I popped him down off the counter. Maybe he was trying to tell me to put the jelly back in the fridge. I picked up the jar and glanced over the ingredients one last time. Oh, water! I turned around and picked up the can of beans. It had water too. Right. The beans used salt mixed in water and the jelly used sugar mixed in water. Of course. I added 2 teaspoons of water and 2 teaspoons of salt to a little bowl, and 2 teaspoons of water and 2 teaspoons of sugar to another little bowl. I stirred them both really well. Then I added 2 teaspoons of salt water to the salt bag and 2 teaspoons of the sugar water to the sugar bag. This time, when I swished the ingredients around, the sugar and salt coated the monster fur instead of just falling to the bottom in the bag. In my science journal, I wrote down the change I'd made to the sugar and salt bag. I clapped my hands together. Perfect. I was ready to move everything to the barn. Just then, my dad walked into the kitchen. I froze. Mom had told me that Dad couldn't see anything magical. Would these bags look empty to him? He'd probably think this was the weirdest experiment ever. Dad walked over and ruffled my hair. Experimenting again, Zoe? What's this one about? He glanced over my journal and notes. Monster fur? That's a cute idea. Are you running a pretend experiment? He lifted up the bag to the light. It might make it more fun if you had some actual fur in there. Maybe Sassafras could donate some? Sassafras growled. I laughed. The bags did look empty to my dad. That's a great idea, Dad. Thanks, I chirped. After my dad left, I leaned down and whispered to Sassafras, don't worry, you can keep your fur. Then I gathered up all of my supplies and headed out to the barn. As I laid everything on the barn's desk, I thought of poor Gorp's tears. If the things I was trying didn't stop the mold from growing on his fur, there wouldn't be enough time to run another experiment before the monster ball. And if Gorp was still moldy, he'd stay home from... Here's a picture of Dad checking out the experiment. The dance. Again, my heart dropped. He had to go. This experiment had to work. There she is, taking everything to the barn. Chapter 10. Success? It was hard to wait, but mold needs time to grow, so Sassafras and I did our best to stay busy over the next 2 days. We went for walks in the forest with my mom, we hunted for bugs, I built cat-sized forest houses for Sassafras using sticks and giant leaves. Finally, we couldn't distract ourselves anymore. I grabbed my science notebook and ran out to the barn to see how the experiment was going. Doesn't want to turn the page. The first bag I checked was the bag with nothing added. There was definitely mold everywhere. Next, I looked at the oil bag. There was some mold, but not as much as in the nothing bag, so oil had worked a little bit. Then I looked at the salt, vinegar, and sugar bags. I squealed so loudly that Sassafras jumped into the air with all of his fur puffed out. I dropped my science notebook and grabbed Sassafras and twirled him around. It worked, Sassafras, it worked! Salt and vinegar and sugar all worked! Right then, the barn door rang. Perfect timing. I ran to the door and flung it open. I was so excited I hugged Gorp before I even said hello. It worked! I know what to do, I cheered. Gorp's eyes got huge. It worked? He was so happy he didn't even notice Sassafras purring and weaving around his legs. So there she is, super excited with Sassafras. And there's Gorp with Sassafras jumping around. I grabbed Gorp's arms and pulled him into the barn. Look, we have 3 choices, salt, sugar, and vinegar. I held up the bags. A smile lit up Gorp's face. Which one should we choose? Good question. You have an awful lot of fur. Let me run into the house to see what we have the most of. I was halfway out the door when I heard a scuffling noise behind me. I turned around to see Gorp backing into the corner of the barn with a terrified look on his face. I guess he'd finally noticed the purring Sassafras at his feet. I scooped up my cat and ran into the house. Decisions, decisions. I set Sassafras down on the kitchen floor and opened the pantry. The first thing I saw was a salt container. I checked. It was almost empty. I scooted the bag of flour to the side and found a brand new giant bag of sugar. That might be a winner. Finally, I looked down at the very bottom of the pantry and found our stash of vinegar. I shook the bottle. Not much left. I had been making too many baking soda and vinegar volcanoes. Sugar was the official winner. I set the big bag down on the kitchen table with a thump. What else do I need, Sassafras? Sassafras impatiently paced by the back door. He wanted some more time with Gorp. I grabbed a big plastic pitcher and a big wooden spoon to mix the sugar water. I added some water to the pitcher and piled everything in my arms. I took little steps so I didn't splash the water everywhere. Here she is, carrying everything back up to the barn. Sassafras meowed at me the whole way to the barn. I guess I wasn't moving fast enough for him. Once we got in, I added a good bit of sugar to the water and stirred with a spoon for a minute or 2. Then I looked from the pitcher to Gorp. We should take this outside. It might get a little messy. We went outside and I checked Gorp's fur. Hey, there isn't any mold right now. Oh, that's only because I just bathed in the stream. Is that okay? That's perfect. The sugar water should stop the mold from growing on your fur like it did with the fur sample in the bag. I'm going to, I guess, pour it on a little bit at a time and spread it around with my spoon. Does that sound okay? Gorp nodded and stood very still. Sassafras saw me raise the pitcher up and put it out of the way. He hates getting wet. I poured and spread the liquid as best I could. After a few minutes, I was pretty sure I'd given Gorp's fur a good coating of sugar water. Ta-da! You're good to go. If you want to come back in a day or 2, I can mix up more for you. I can't believe I'm going to the monster ball, Gorp cheered. I'm a bit damp, so I think I'll take a nice long walk to make sure I'm dry before I settle down for the night. That's a great plan, Gorp. I'm so happy for you. We waved goodbye to each other, and I brought all of my supplies into the house. After I put everything we used in the sink to wash later, I grabbed my science journal and wrote down the results of my monster fur experiment. I was so happy I solved Gorp's mold problem, but as I closed my science journal, I realized I'd forgotten to get a photo of him again. Maybe he'd come back for more sugar water in a few days, and I could ask him then. So there's her putting on the syrup, or the sugar water. It kind of makes the syrup. And Sassafras is bug hunting. Chapter 12. Oh no. We got 2 more to go. Sassafras and I were in the kitchen figuring out what we wanted for breakfast when the magic doorbell rang. The doorbell this early? I really hoped it wasn't Gorp coming back with mold again. Mom looked over at me with a raised eyebrow and handed me a piece of toast. Thanks, Mom, I said. I grabbed the toast and gave her a quick hug on